Welcome to the Pitch Strike Chronicles podcast. I am Tats. I'm here with Rob and Donald, and we are on Northeast Streaming Sports on Roku. Welcome. This is a very different show for us. We will be here for a full hour with you guys, helping out Mac and Jack on a little time off. And we had what was a very slow-paced, sometimes boring game last night, but it was when you were starting to see that this was starting to look like more of a pitcher's duel, just even though it was the Royals, it should have been that hard for Taillon. Um, you started to see this is kind of a fun. It became fun in an old school way, where you really just saw the two pitchers just really just in the zone, and you got to give it to Brady Singer. He pitched he really knew what he carved that lineup up. He pitched very well, and this isn't the first time he's been able to pitch like this year. He's had a few outings, so he might just be one of those really good pitchers that on a bad team that doesn't get any recognition throughout baseball. We had the walk-off from Judge. Marinaccio had a phenomenal outing out of the bullpen. So, all in all, Yankees come off with the walk-off. And what was the biggest takeaway that you saw from Taillon's outing?
Strikeout stuff was there.
Yeah.
It's nice that two of his last three starts have been good, but unfortunately, sandwiched in between them was that terrible start against Baltimore. So I just hope that this is something that he can build on because we need him to be. We're not going to get first 2 months of Taillon back this year, probably.
No.
But if we can get some middle ground from what he's been to from what he was, which is just give us 5-6 innings, keep us in the ball game. That's more than you can ask for at this point because he's clearly showing signs of fatigue. So you just want him to give you a decent start when he goes out there, keep you in the game, give you a chance to win. It was the Royals though, and he had to throw 60 pitches to get through the first few innings. So you don't want to see that, but also you definitely want to feel encouraged because he looked a lot better last night than he did against the Orioles. So take it as a building block, and hopefully it gets him going down the stretch these last 2 months.
Yeah, the impression I got was even though he had the high pitch count, he wasn't laboring. It was, it was just really, a battle between the pitcher and the batter, and more often than not, he was winning the battle. So I think that's what also threw his pitch count up. And if we can get, I'd rather with Taillon, with Cortez, with Montgomery, they're gonna run out. We saw that they've been running out of steam a little bit. If we could get focus more on the quality of the innings that they can pitch, not how many innings they're pitching or their pitch count, I think that's going to serve them well. And it's kind of take the criticism away from them if they're not going deep into games like they were early in the year.
It could be. Donald?
What's the question?
What'd you take away from Taillon last night?
Oh, we're right back to the original question. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So the original question. My takeaway was I think that this was it's a good first step. I think Taillon was absolutely fine. He labored, but that was mostly because he was striking guys out. And he was his strikeouts were up, and I think first couple of innings he was still finding his feet, but after that he sailed through. I was really happy with him. I was really happy with the pitching altogether. It was absolutely great pitching. But no, I think it was a step forward for Taillon. Last couple of outings, not been great, but this was the old Taillon from earlier on this year. So, yeah, I think we'll take that as a big positive. It wasn't a great performance from the Yankees altogether, but certainly he was.
No, and that's why I also brought up how Singer just he's this isn't a rare start from him that he put up against us last night. And so, like I said, he's just a really good pitcher that's stuck on a bad team. And you know, you want to make sure when you get into those. I thought the offense could have just been a little more patient at the plate, but the way that he had command of his pitches, you weren't always afforded that luxury of waiting out for a mistake pitch because there weren't a lot of mistakes on the pitching end last night.
Well, it didn't help that 5 through 9 was basically automatic outs. We sat DJ, which I guess is okay, but we're down stand. So you put Gallo in the lineup, you know what's happening there. You put Donaldson out there, you know what's happening there. Aaron Hicks, he's not consistent enough to be like, okay, he's going to do something. He's been better, he's just not consistent. Trevino, he's already outperformed anything we could have expected, but he's not like this, surefire thing at the bottom of the order. Marvin Gonzalez is Marvin Gonzalez. It's just so you're looking at the lineup and you're thinking all these guys are one after the next. Any pitcher is going to navigate through that. They just got to get through the top 4. Benintendi struggled. It was his first game, so I'm not going to get on him. But we had the one walk from Judge and then one hit from Torres. Up until the 9th inning, you had 2 guys on. Like, I don't care who it is. Brady Singer's not that good that you should be struggling like that. He has a couple of good starts in a row now, but he was almost at a 5 ERA not too long ago. So he was really, really struggling. You can hit this guy. And we rolled out a lineup there that it basically said, let's see what happens. I don't like that. I don't like that we sat DJ. I don't like that we sat IKF. And it really does tell me we freaking need another bat in this lineup. Benintendi's not enough because it is still plagued with holes.
Yeah. So the lineup definitely when we're all excited, we're all amped up. You have Benintendi, he's going to be in the lineup. He's leading off. That's awesome. And you look at the rest of the lineup, and the fact that you still had to see Gallo in there. It's like, didn't we get, Benny to get rid of Gallo? Wasn't that supposed to be the trade-off in the lineup? But it was. I don't think at this point, coming off the way that we came out of the All-Star break, and that we haven't really been as sharp and really playing solid ball. When you have you can't sit both. You can't sit more than 2 starters in your lineup. You need to keep the momentum going. You need to get them right. You can't give them all off days. So I think having IKF and LeMahieu, sit one of them one day and sit the other one tonight. Don't have them both sitting, especially without starting in the lineup. You need to keep that continuing lineup, because that was one of the things that we saw early in the year. That was their strength, is the batters knew when they were going to be. They knew they were going to be in the lineup. The lineups were more consistent. Boone's starting to revert back to these, scheduled off day nonsense. That's not serving them any purpose. They have no rhythm. Donald.
A very long-winded question there. So yes, you're right. They should be sitting both LeMahieu and IKF, especially with the fact that Stanton's out right now. Stanton being out has kind of affected the order, but yeah, 5 through 9, absolutely not good. I would have definitely not have sat LeMahieu. That's for freaking sure. The guy's been on fire, so I didn't really particularly like that. But no, while you were talking there, Tats, I was looking at Brady Singer's previous outings. I mean, I have to say, Brady Singer put together one of the most impressive performances at the stadium that I've seen this year. He was electric. His stuff is electric. I love his slider that goes in, right in your back leg. It's pretty impressive. I'm really impressed by his delivery. There's deception in his movement and his motion. And I don't think the Yankees knew what the hell to do with him. So if you look at his previous outing, he had 12 strikeouts against the Rays. 6 innings, just 1 run, 12 strikeouts, 7 innings, 1 hit, 10 strikeouts against us. Against the Tigers, 1 run over 6 innings, 6 Ks. So 22 strikeouts in his last 2 games is pretty damn good. So he's had 1, 2, 3, 4 quality starts in a row. And then he also had some big games against the White Sox, 7 innings, no runs, 9 strikeouts. The Twins, 7 innings, no runs, 8 strikeouts. This dude is electric. I'm excited for him. I think he's going to be really, really, really good. And I think the Yankees would be wise to keep an eye out on him because I think that he's got the stuff that could definitely translate in Yankee Stadium. He's lost it in the Royals, so I'd definitely consider him as someone to look out for maybe next year. But no, I think he was excellent last night. So I mean, normally I'm very critical of the Yankees offense, but his movement was that. It was Scherzer-esque, so it was hard to really get any traction on him at all. So I'm not going to overly blame the Yankees offense last night, which I normally would, because I've not been happy with their approach for a long time now. But on this occasion, I think it was just you tip your cap to Singer. He was that good.
Yeah, that's what I said. There weren't a lot of mistakes, if there were any. No, he's been one of those. We're seeing that a lot, where there are a lot of good players that are just stuck on bad teams. The Royals is one of them. The Tigers, the Marlins, have a couple of guys that are starting to come out of their shell. The Orioles, look at what they've been able to do once their team started to click. And they started getting a little more confidence around them. So the talent is spread out around the league. Just the owners aren't investing in their clubs to really make their talent want to stay with them and put fans in the seats. We've talked about this in the offseason over and over again. If you want to, you want to make money, you gotta maintain, you gotta keep your talent and build around the right amount of talent. So it's going to be a shame that this guy's going to be on a team that really isn't putting the effort in to be competitive.
I wouldn't say they're not putting in the effort. They're rebuilding. It wasn't that long ago they won the World Series and they made back-to-back World Series. I wouldn't say they're not making an effort. They traded Benintendi, which is a rental player, so obviously you get pieces back for him. They have other pieces they can move. They're not good, but I don't think they're like in a position that Pittsburgh's in, where it seems like there's really no. Even Pittsburgh's got some young players coming up. There are far worse teams. Like Oakland is a travesty. Mm-hmm. I know that the records are very, very similar between the two, but Kansas City has some pieces that you can build on. Oakland just doesn't care. Oakland's got a bad stadium that even the commissioner doesn't think is suitable for a major league team. So there are teams that really don't care. I think Kansas City, they're going through that transition because they were kind of like what Baltimore was doing a couple of years ago. They got some pieces coming up, but they just got to figure it out. It's a rebuild. I think they'll be better sooner than later. But Singer, he shut us down. There's no question about it. I'm concerned that every time we go up against a guy with good stuff, we're seeing them just lay down, and that's not a good thing. Good teams find ways to at least scrape a couple of base runners. We were able to get some hits against Max Scherzer the other night. We were a bullet line drive out from DJ LeMahieu that was an expected average of like 7-something. So we were able to do that against Scherzer, but then Singer comes in and we lay an absolute egg. So it's concerning to me. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to downplay what Singer did. but I'm concerned that the offense is doing this against decent to good pitching or to great pitching. We just have trouble. Think about what we're going to see in the postseason. If we play Toronto, we got to go against Manoah. Can we hit him right now? I don't know. If we go against Houston, we can't hit their pitching.
Yeah,
We've already made that evident. So, and clearly, if we go in the World Series and we got to play the Mets, Scherzer and DeGrom, and we can't hit Taijuan Walker very well either. I mean, it's moves need to be made. I'm very, very concerned with this offense right now. Yeah, they can turn it around when they're healthy, but we also didn't even tell you he sat Carpenter last night too. I know he's been struggling, but that's 3 of your regulars that were out of the lineup yesterday against their best pitcher. So what were we thinking there? Why not sit them tonight?
It's an excellent point. Again, I don't think it really. I think you can move off these scheduled days off at this point when our backs are against the wall with injuries and performance. I mean, Joey Callow, what did they really expect was going to happen? Why is he even there? He shouldn't even, to be honest. I mean, we know he's not going to be a Yankee by the deadline. So why is he even playing at all? It was bizarre. He's legitimately probably the worst player in baseball right now. I don't think there's any question about that. So that was a weird one from Boone. And no, Rob's right, man. The approach that the Yankees have had offensively, I mean, you can date back to over the last 3 years, minimum. If we haven't seen the guy before, or if he's got decent movement on his stuff, you can forget it. The 7 innings, no runs right there. That's just the way the Yankees are. It's weird. They struggle with good pitching. Really struggle with good pitching. Their approach is out the window. This is a team that prides itself on drawing walks and working deep counts. And honestly, as soon as they face a good pitcher, they're swinging the first pitch that they see, that they think is good. It's not an approach that's just going to win anything. So, yeah, that needs to be mended, man.
No, and like what Rob, to go back to more of what Rob was saying, when you have a lineup that you're putting out there, and you facing a top pitcher, we're seeing that we still need to make more moves for offense, because against a lesser team, we're putting up runs. That hasn't been the problem. It's when we're facing the good pitching is when the offense just takes the day off, and that's not how you get through the postseason. Into the World Series, you're going to get bounced right away, because if you're not hitting, you're putting all that pressure on your pitching now. And we saw, even though last night with Taillon shut it down. One bad pitch, one bad pitch from the Yankees, and say the Royals were able to get the lead. That good outing that was out the window. So now we're talking about, I can't believe he left that pitch hanging over the plate. Meanwhile, he didn't do anything wrong. The offense didn't, wasn't able to do anything. So the offense, I think, is now going into that spotlight where we were screaming for pitching. The offense still has some work that needs to be done. And Rob, you had put together some proposals of how the Yankees can continue to address issues.
Yes, I am going to give you guys a few trade options here. A lot of heavy prospects are going to get dealt in these trade proposals, but they're moves that are going to help this team. So here's the thing. I came up with 4 different trades. One of them is to get a pitcher, and that is obviously Luis Castillo.
Okay.
So what I'm going to bring to you guys is the Castillo trade. Then I'm going to give you 3 other trade options, and which one would follow up a Castillo trade, because the players that are going to Cincinnati in my trade they can't be involved in the other trades that I made. So for Castillo, you give up Peraza, Everson Pereira, Will Warren, and probably can give them another prospect a little bit lower down the line. But by using the baseball trade value website, we're actually giving up more in total value than what we get in Castillo. So for now, those three, Peraza, Pereira, and Warren for Castillo.
I think that actually sounds like a very realistic trade.
It is realistic. I'm very hesitant to trade Pereira. I saw him in person. This guy's going to be an electric outfielder. His swing is electric. Although he strikes out a little bit too much, but I think because he's in Double A, it'll just continue to improve. I think. I think the Yankees should keep him out of negotiations. So if I were Brian Cashman, I would say no to that. I would keep him out.
Very, very interesting. He does have actually more value than Dominguez does.
Yeah, he's actually meant to be better than Dominguez.
I do say I like Pereira a lot. I really do. But if we're going to get a top tier starter and we're not giving up Volpe or Dominguez or Waldichuk or Wesneski, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
So
I would put Waldichuk in.
Would. Well, interestingly enough, he is involved in this next trade.
All right.
This one's I'm kind of living in a fantasy world here, but I don't see it happening. However, I'd probably find a way to jump off the roof in happiness if this did happen. We get from the Pittsburgh Pirates Bednar, Reynolds, and Quintana, and we give up Dominguez, Volpe, Waldichuk, Wells, Florial, and Randy Vasquez.
Wait, Bednar and who else?
Brian Reynolds and Jose Quintana.
Well, maybe.
Ooh.
Well, if you get Brian Reynolds, then. But
you go first this time, Donald.
The Benintendi thing, I think, takes us out of the outfield market. I mean, this sounds like more of an off-season move.
Thing is, right now, I don't trust Stanton to play the outfield when he comes back. He's coming back from an Achilles, and I just feel like one false step could keep him out the rest of the way. I don't want to take that risk. I don't want Hicks to play every day, especially now that they're thinking about putting him in center field. He's clearly not a good center fielder anymore.
Nope.
Brian Reynolds is, and this would keep Benintendi in left. You can slide Judge back to right, and your outfield is set. You don't have to worry about ever seeing Joey Gallo again. You don't have to worry about putting Carpenter in the outfield again. And you get Bednar, who's outstanding. And plus, both Reynolds and Bednar are under control for 3 more years each. Bednar actually longer because he hasn't even hit arbitration yet.
Poor Pittsburgh fans. We always devour them by trade. So, of course, if you get an opportunity to take two elite players in Bednar and Reynolds, then yeah, you would do that. But I still think that's an off-season move.
Yeah. Again, I said fantasy world. I don't see these things. There's one trade that I can actually see happening because it's not a lot in terms of prospects, but I'll get to that in a moment. Tats, your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, no, in a realistic point of view, yeah, it's an off season. But for a fantasy point of view, in a fantasy world, if we're talking that way, I actually think that this is a move where you're seeing that both teams are getting players where there are no question marks. It's not all right, how's this guy going to pan out? How's that guy going to pan out? I think both teams are getting, quality return where you can slide them right into a position and not have to go, oh, I hope this works. Which is sometimes, when you're making moves for players that haven't been in the league that long, there's not that much of a book, as great as the scouting reports are on these guys. So I think that is I think that's as close to a win-win for a trade that you're going to see, and it helps both teams' needs.
Now, yeah, we are giving up in this trade a lot of top
Yeah.
prospects. Dominguez, Volpe, Waldichuk, Wells. Vasquez is like
Whoa.
top 15.
Why is Volpe involved? I didn't realize Volpe was involved.
You're not getting Bednar and Reynolds without giving up Volpe.
Yeah. That's not
I'm
right.
out on Vol. Have you seen what Volpe was doing yesterday? This guy's going to be incredible.
You're starting to turn into me here with the prospect.
Yeah, right? I thought I wanted to win a World Series.
It's basically Volpe is, for me, is out of all discussions, including Soto.
Well, then you're going to hate this next trade proposal because for Juan Soto, and I'm trying to give up Florial because if they're not going to use him, please trade him. So he's in this one as well, but so is Dominguez and Volpe, Sears, Medina, and Wesneski. And we get Soto and Patrick Corbin, which would take off some potential prospects from us. We're still giving you our top two of our top three, but because we're taking on that Corbin contract, you might have to give up a little bit less.
Well, that one I'm on the fence with.
Corbin's so bad. Did you see what Corbin did in his last outing?
I know.
700 runs in like a 2/3 of an inning.
But if we're getting Castillo, we don't really have to worry about Corbin starting too many games for us. He might just be an innings eater at this point. And maybe Matt Blake can fix him into something halfway decent. It did fix Clay Holmes.
That's a good point. With having these pitchers that might not be having the best year, when you look at what Matt Blake has been able to do with his pitching staff and a solid catcher behind the dish, I think that it might just be that boost for a guy like Corbin to go, you know what, and start taking it a lot more seriously. Sometimes you always get that impression when what?
The idea that he's not taking this seriously, and then it's just like
when there's nothing to play for, sometimes you lose a little steam. That's all.
He's playing for about $25 million. He's got about $25 million coming his way. I'd hope he cared.
Yeah, but that's on past performance. That it's not like he has to hit certain numbers to get his money. He's going to get paid regardless. So he's like, right, if I'm still getting paid, I don't. Sometimes they not that they're intentionally playing bad and that they give up, but sometimes when you go from a bad team to a good team, you get that little extra burst, and you start paying attention a little bit more than what you already are. That's all. Not that these guys quit on the team. Nobody ever does that. You're on a grand stage. You're playing Major League Baseball. All eyes are on you. You're going. You're doing what you can. But sometimes when you're not on a winning team, the impression could be, I just don't care. I'm just going to go and do my thing, and what happens, happens. If you go into the Yankee, say you get moved over to the Yankees or a winning team, you get that the juice is flowing again.
But let's go back to the trade again. So it was Corbin and Soto for Volpe.
Volpe, Dominguez, Medina, Sears, Wesneski, and Florial.
I think for Soto, you bite the bullet. I would make that trade for Soto.
So you're on the fence a minute ago, but now you've talked yourself into it?
No, I wasn't on the fence.
You just said, Joe, I'm on the fence with this one. That's what you just said a minute ago.
But for Soto, you have to make the deal. You can't turn down any. You can't not wanting to go. Make a deal for Soto. You can't do it.
We know the Nationals want top prospects. They also want a couple of young major league talent with little service time, and that's Sears and Florial. But again, they also want people to take Corbin. So if you're taking Corbin, you're not getting 4 of the top 5 prospects. So
it's pretty fair. I think you have to do it. I don't want to give up full pay, but I think you have to do it. For Soto, I think you have to.
Now this one for Ian Happ and David Robertson. Trace Sweeney, Austin Wells, Hayden Wesneski. And you can throw in Florial as well. Because please just stop leaving him in the minor leagues. The guy's tearing it up. Let him
For
play
Ian
elsewhere.
Happ and
David Robertson.
no, I don't think there's any need for another outfielder right now. I think we've got our outfielder. I understand your point regarding Stan, but I don't think he's on the verge of breaking down. I think in a couple of weeks, I think he'll be fine. They'll ease him in, but I think that we need to be focusing more on Castillo starting pitching and just a reliever. I don't think we necessarily need another outfielder.
Well, remember, the first trade was for Castillo, and none of those guys are involved in any of these trades. So that's, as I said, these are like a trade that would happen after. If you can get Castillo, you're giving up Peraza, Pereira, and whatever the hell else I put in there. And
yeah, right, okay.
so this would follow up that trade. It's not going to happen. If he does make a move, it would be for a guy like Joey Wendell, who we can definitely get from the Marlins, and probably with a guy like Anthony Bass as well. That gives us another bat that can take some at-bats away from IKF and give us a bullpen arm.
Is there a trade package that you have of just Bednar? Because I think we obviously will want a quality reliever by the deadline. If you,
Well, for Bednar, you might have to go Waldichuk, Wells, and Vasquez. That might be enough to entice them.
Wells is looking very good in Double-A.
We have a lot of catchers. We have Gomez. We have Josh Bros in AAA. Trevino's still young, and Wortvet's coming back, and he's only like 23, 24.
He's awful, though. He's garbage.
Well, if we're going defense-oriented, I mean, Austin Wells right now is just kind of looking like another Gary Sanchez in terms of what.
Yeah, he was actually DHing in the game that I went to, but his power's there. If there was a bat that stood out to me the most, was actually Wells.
Yeah, since you were at that game and we're bringing it up with a lot of these prospects, what takeaways did you have watching the that team playing on the field? Was there something that stood out that you were like, oh wow, let me pay more attention to this guy, or was there a play like, why are we coveting him so well? So much, and what did you see from that team when you were down there?
Well, I don't want to make mass judgments over one game.
First impressions, that's all.
But yeah, first impressions. I think that as I stated, I think that Austin Wells is going to have a plus major league bat. I definitely see power and a swing, good, solid swing there. So I like him. I think that I wouldn't rush to trade him, but yeah, the fact he's used as a DH suggests to me that he's probably not much of a defensive option at catcher. But I do like his power. I like him a lot, and I like Pereira a lot. Even though he didn't do too much in the first couple of at-bats, I believe he hit a home run later in the game. I went out for dinner by that point, but later in the game he hit a home run. But yeah, he's got a vicious swing and it's quick. So I think that's going to translate at the major league level. So I really like him too. And Volpe, he just carries himself as a Yankee. You can just tell he's very assured, and he's got an unbelievable arm at shortstop. And his power's translating too. Did you see he hit 2 home runs the other day, and made this unbelievable play at shortstop? For somebody in Double-A to make that play is scary. So that's why I don't want to trade him at all. So he's those guys basically stand out to me the most. Although Volpe didn't do anything in the game that I went to, it's clear by the way he carries himself that he's going to be the future of the Yankees. You just get a good feeling with him. He's a good guy, good kid, hard worker, and that's the future of the Yankees there. So I know that Brian Cashman adores him, so he'd be loath to trade him.
I don't think he will trade him, but if you're going to try to get, like, we know that the Yankees are, or they've fallen out of the race a little bit for Soto, but if they wanted to get back in it, it would take Volpe. It absolutely would. There's no scenario where you get Soto and you don't give up Volpe. And there's probably the same thing goes for a guy like Brian Reynolds. You're not going to get these good, really, really good players right now that have control for, your top two, a couple of your top 15 guys. You have to give up your number one, which is Volpe in these scenarios, which is why I think if they went for another bat, it's not going to be in the infield unless they go get a third baseman, but they can just put LeMahieu there, which is something else I want to talk about. Do you know who's played the most games at third base this year? It's LeMahieu. He's played the most games at third base this year instead of second. That's ridiculous. And once again proves the point, Brian Cashman's way of getting creative was acquiring $50 million of a player he didn't need because he already had two third basemen on his roster. He had Urshela and he had DJ. You could have still traded Gio and you still could have traded Gary to get rid of their contracts, and the money that you're paying Donaldson could have went to, I don't know, Carlos Correa. And guess what? The left side of our infield is Correa and LeMahieu, who's been fine at third. Torres gets to play at second. You still have Rizzo in tow, and the money has not changed. You might be paying a few extra million to have Correa on the roster right now. So that was Brian Cashman's creative offseason, just to get a stopgap shortstop, where he could have had the sure thing in Correa for, a few years.
And the funny thing, and with Correa, say you do have him.
Just intervene there, 100%. That's why I hated the trade at the time. I stuck by my guns. It was a terrible, terrible trade. You could have moved Gary Sanchez in numerous ways, or you could have just made the direct swap of Gary Sanchez for IKF. And if we needed to throw in a couple of low level prospects just to do that, then you do that. I just don't want to inherit $25 million of Josh Donaldson per year. He's got we have to pay him another 25 next year as well. Can you imagine? His bat is a joke right now. It's lost. So that was not being creative at all. Being creative is finding ways to get rid of money, but get better, right? Brian Cashman took on money and got worse.
The defense wasn't terrible when the season first started, because that was one of the things that we did say, that the defense didn't really miss a beat. It actually was cleaning up. But with the way that the offense is going, it's not working out. But if they had made that more, instead of making that trade and they signed Correa, which would almost be the same amount of money per year, as you're paying Donaldson now, then you would also be able to let go of Volpe in a Soto type deal, where you can still get another superstar, generational bat still under control. So think of what could have been with this lineup and defensive alignment. That's outrageous.
Well, if we'd gone to Korea in the offseason,
you would have no problems offensively against the Astros.
If we'd gone to Korea in the offseason, we wouldn't have had to worried about making these moves for outfielders, because it wouldn't have been that much of a priority.
Anytime you're replacing Gallo, it's a priority.
Well, we knew. I knew that Gallo was not going to play well this year, but the Yankees kept trying to beat this dead horse, and it's now getting worse and worse. But yeah, if they could have moved on from Joey Gallo last offseason. They could have then just signed Correa. You know what I mean? and instead of taking on Donaldson's contract, and then if they'd done something where they could have moved off of Chapman's contract, then they wouldn't have taken on any extra money. In fact, they probably would have saved money. So, yeah, I didn't agree with the offseason. Now we're having to search for bats. Where, I mean, this was a problem that's always going to happen.
Well, and that's
You know what I
that's
mean? I think that we played above our level for much of this year. There's huge red flags in this team, huge holes. And now we're going to the deadline and we're searching. We need an open arm. We need a starting pitcher. We need outfield help. Technically we probably need a shortstop, but we're not going to look for a shortstop right now. But there's a lot of holes in this team now. So it's a credit to this team that we're so far ahead in the East when we've got this amount of holes in the team.
Yeah, and you think about it, like they could have moved Gallo this offseason. That would have freed up money. Chapman wasn't going anywhere because he's got that damn no trade, and he probably wouldn't have waived it, maybe for the right situation, but you could have at least explored it. Gallo doesn't have a no trade. I'm sure someone would have taken him with a clean slate, if they would have shopped him. They were probably just asking for too much. But that way that he put it, that was him getting creative. It's just really ridiculous because, yeah, I get it. On paper, Donaldson last year was a lot better than Urshela. Offensively and defensively, he was a better player. But we're seeing this year, whatever the heck it is with Donaldson, the decline happened rapidly. He's not hitting for power. That's the issue. I couldn't care less if he was hitting 240, but his on base is okay. But now the slugging is down, which is affecting his OPS, and that's affecting everything else. He's fine defensively. For a 36-year-old, he's doing just fine. But he's not hitting for power. There's zero pop in that bat right now, and he should be murdering the ball at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
He's not. He should be right there with Rizzo and Stanton in terms of home run numbers, if you think about it, if not a few less. But he's not hitting for power at all. He's not a doubles hitter. He's not a gap-to-gap guy. He's just rolling over, or he's striking out. He's basically like a slightly better version of Joey Gallo right now, because what's he doing? He's either walking or he's striking out, and he's playing good defense. He is a slightly better version of Joey Gallo because he has a better batting average. That is it. And he's making more than double of Gallo's salary.
And continues to put them back-to-back in the lineup. So that's 2 automatic outs right now.
Yeah. It's dreadful. So, I mean, that's why I'm not trying to dismiss Gallo for being as bad as he's been this year, but that's why I haven't been that hard on him, because Donaldson has been far worse, in my opinion. Far worse.
I agree. That's why Josh Donaldson is my biggest disappointment this year, not Joey Gallo, because I knew Joey Gallo was going to struggle. I didn't like the Josh Donaldson pickup, but I didn't think that his bat would be this bad.
But for what we're seeing from this team now, and what we saw, prior to the break, do you think that the team was just it was overachieving to a level where now our expectations have increased to where we can't even handle a little bit of a blip in the performance?
They were getting a lot of production all over the place, though. Even Rizzo's been struggling a lot lately, and that's not really getting talked about. His power is down for the last month and a half. He's not hitting for power. He's barely not even hitting. And he's in the 3 spot right now. That's why I really would like another, especially I keep thinking about Soto in the middle of Judge and Stanton, and you put Rizzo in that 5 spot. You can maneuver the lineup now if you got Soto, and you can go Benintendi, LeMahieu, Soto, Judge, whatever order you want to put that in. And that's a difficult order to navigate. But maybe they need to drop Rizzo in the order. Because right now he's in the 3 hole and he's not doing anything. And he was early in the year. So his struggles have hurt the offense. Donaldson being bad has obviously hurt the offense. But Stanton out, you're relying on 3 guys to give you offense. And that's LeMahieu, Judge, and Torres. IKF has been just fine for what he is. He's basically the exact same player he was last year, but he's not a guy that you look for to be like, be a spark. That's not him. You can't rely on Trevino to do that. You damn sure can't rely on Gallo or Donaldson. So you're not getting production from the guys you have to get it from. Rizzo's struggles need to be talked about because I know his glove is still there and he's a better at bat than Donaldson, but he's been very bad lately. And no one seems to want to talk about that. I know he's a fan favorite and I love the guy too, but he's been bad lately, not all year.
Yeah,
not all year.
Just recently. Yeah, he had that one home run at Citi Field.
Mhm.
But really, you haven't seen him. Which is right. Which is where Rob is right. You're not seeing the ball really fly off the bat like it was. It almost seems like that he's kind of lost a little bit in the momentum of his swing, where he's not getting that velo to get the ball to carry. So that is something that really, because it's Rizzo. I think same thing when Judge was going through his slump. Nobody wants to bring that up. Obviously he's out of that. He's coming out of it very well.
Rob, to go back to your trade, what do you think would be a realistic package for Castillo? Because I think we're going to get Castillo pretty soon. What do you think the package is?
Well,
I think Waldichuk is going to be involved.
One of those two, Waldichuk or Wisniewski, probably will have to be involved because they're both Rule 5 guys, so they're going to have to keep one and probably get rid of the other. Peraza is going to have to be in that deal.
Yeah.
You're not dealing Volpe and you're not calling up Peraza yet. He's going to be traded. Yeah. And they like Will Warren, so he'll be in there as well. And maybe if you do that, you get to keep Pereira and you give them another prospect or two, kind of like lower on the top 30. That's possible. So if they're getting Waldichuk, Peraza, Warren, who they like, and
maybe Medina. I'd throw in Medina as well.
You can throw in Medina as well. I think he's going to end up being a bullpen arm. I know a lot of people said that about Heel. I just see Medina's stuff translating well to like a shutdown reliever. Yeah. So maybe now you can try to sell high. There's also Randy Vasquez who's pitching well in the minors. So you could probably pull off that move without giving up Pereira. You just have to give up more total players.
You give up another 2 or 3 mid-level prospects.
I think that would get the job done, but it has to start with Peraza and either Pereira or Waldichuk. That has to be at the starting point, and then depending on who that second player is, that's where the rest of the package comes in.
I think a deal headlined by Peraza and Waldichuk would get the deal done without having to give up Pereira. I think that's a decent return. And from what I understand, I don't think there's too many teams that are in on Castillo, so we probably don't need to bid against ourselves so much. But I think we're going to get Castillo pretty damn soon. I have a feeling by the deadline on Tuesday, I think you could be. I think you could be looking at Castillo being a Yankee.
No, I think it happens before the weekend's over. Absolutely. Obviously the deadline's on Tuesday, but I think I'm surprised that we're not seeing more trades coming through the wire. Once Benintendi was moved, I thought that was, I expected that to open the floodgate, but where teams started making moves, and I started wondering what team, would, if they decided to sell, would surprise you.
Honestly, the Marlins, because they're not that bad. They're only like a few games. They're not going to make the playoffs, but the fact that they're pretty much listening on everybody except for Alcantara, obviously, because he's ridiculous. That's kind of surprising because they got some good pieces there. Like their rotation's pretty solid. They got some good bullpen arms, so they can sell off there. But the fact that they even listen in on Chisholm is interesting to me. I think they're close. But maybe they're just trying to move 1 or 2 guys that get them more prospects so they can keep that, speed up that rebuild a little bit more. I like Joey Wendell a lot. I would gladly take him on the Yankees right now. So they have pieces like Wendell and Bass. I guess Chisholm you could put in there because they're not too high on him because he's, I guess, his antics, but he's a heck of a player. So I wouldn't move him if I was the GM, but that's a different story. I'm kind of surprised the Marlins are kind of in that sell mode.
Yeah, I would have thought they would have been more like, I would have put them more in line with Baltimore, where you might make some smaller moves to help the process, go along with the rebuild, because the Marlins are almost the NL East version of the Orioles. They're right on that. They have the right amount of talent, just not the right amount of experience. And I think once that starts to click, look what we're seeing in Baltimore. They're trusting each other on the field. So the Marlins are not that far behind that. So I am
I like
surprised.
the Marlins team. I think they've got the best pitching prospects. They're going to be really, really good as long as they're cultivated. I think they're really good. Plus, Derek Jeter handpicked the cream of the crop of Yankee front office personnel and brought him over to the Marlins. And so let's not forget about that. I'll be interested to see what they do. But then let's not forget that Derek Jeter walked out because he wasn't happy with the fact they're not going to spend any money. So that's probably still going to be a big problem in Florida. So as for what I think I don't want the Orioles to trade Trey Mancini because Mancini's been great this year and the Orioles have been great this year. And it was a nice moment that Mancini hit a inside the park home run yesterday. But there's a belief around the league that he's going to be traded by the deadline. I don't think it's going to be the Mets, though, because the Mets just made a deal with the Reds. So I'm not quite sure where he's going to go. I thought Mancini was going to go to the Mets. So
that deal they made with the Reds, though, they gave up nothing to get Naquin and Deal, the relievers. They could still add him. I know they're in on Contreras. The Mets are going to make some moves. They're going to be very, very active.
Well, I know the Mets are also very. They want Robinson as much as we do. They need that bullpen that help, because once you get through their top, almost same thing with us. Once you get through the top guys and you go to the second tier per se in the bullpen, it's not that difficult to navigate through and put some hits together. So I think the Mets are going to be very heavy into bullpen arms. So, and they still have the pieces to make those moves.
For sure, they probably will. Donald, was there a team though, Donald, that besides maybe Miami, is there like a team that's kind of like 500 or better that might be selling to you? Do you think there's anyone that would be a seller, even though they're still technically in the race? Maybe
Orioles. I think the Orioles are the team that jumps. Got some talent.
Thing is, they have tradable talent though, because they can get a lot in return for Mancini.
Yeah, I'll need to go through. They've got some good players though. I love their outfield, the Orioles.
Yeah, I would not. I would prefer not to see Mancini moved. Although business point, it makes sense. It serves the Orioles to move on and get something in return for him. Like you don't see players that really just stick it out with one team, never complain. Through the rebuild, he kind of just went with the flow and just continued to give the Orioles everything he had. So I'd like to see him stay an Oriole for the long run. I would be upset if they did move him.
Yeah, he's one of those players that you'd like to see him stay with the same team, especially knowing what he went through just a couple of years ago to fight to get back to playing baseball. He's a special player. He's always been good. You'd hate to see a fan favorite like that get traded. For to be selfish, see him get out of the AL East. That'd be nice because I hate having to deal with him. But I don't think Baltimore should move him. However, he's one of those players. They have good talent, but they only have a few guys that are going to net you good returns right now.
Yeah.
And he's one of them. If they move on from Mullins, which I think would be insane, but he'd also get you a lot. So they have a couple of guys that you can get something for, and he is one of them. I know we have, 5 minutes left. Tats, you were talking yesterday about Rodon potentially getting moved. Do you think he's a player that San Francisco tries to ship out?
San Francisco fell under 500. And from, I was talking with Nikki, who's going to be with us next week for, to go over some of the trades that come through. And he was saying that they're not. Rondon is not happy with the way that the season has gone. Obviously, in the offseason, San Francisco looked like a team that was really going to be a contender, and they weren't able to keep up with the Padres and the Dodgers. So they might, Rondon is expected to opt out at the end of the season. So that's what the fans are expecting to happen. So the fans are already, kind of checking out a little bit on the Giants, saying, all right, it's just not gonna, we can't keep up, we can't compete. So if he does opt out, obviously that would be more. I would worry about that more in the off season, because right now all your focus needs to be on Castillo. So I wouldn't pivot to Rondon just yet, but it might be somebody that, if he does opt out and the fans get what they want, if the fans just check out, he might be somebody to look at in the off season, because he was somebody that I believe, Rob, was on your list of the players that we wanted to go after this year.
Well, he was on both of our lists, I believe. Yeah. Me and Donald had him. He's a good pitcher. He's coming off his best year. He's having a decent year with San Francisco. It would make sense to trade him because most players opt out anyway after that first year. When they have a first-year opt-out, usually they do it. Like, I'm expecting Rizzo to probably opt out for us this year, which might not be the worst-case scenario, but I do think that, you see what Correa had the same thing, opt out after year one. He'll probably opt out again. A lot of players did it because of the weird offseason, and Rodon's no different. So he pitches well, makes the playoffs, probably not, but he gets a big payday this year. He'll get a big payday next offseason as well. If he has two really good, healthy seasons back-to-back, someone will give him a 3, 4, maybe even 5-year deal in a regular offseason.
About payday. Pay Aaron Judge. Pay that man.
Yes.
Pay that man.
Yep.
Stop being cheap. You can get Juan Soto and still pay Aaron Judge because you don't have to worry about paying Soto for another 2 godforsaken years. Do it. Get me Soto. Get me Castillo. Let's be greedy. Let's be the freaking Yankees again. Let's go win a championship.
No, that's really what it comes down to. Getting back with Judge, you got here he is having an MVP year again. You got robbed of his first one. 39 home runs now. I mean, we're not even into August. This is insane. The way he was able to, walking it off after going, over the night before, just the way he was, and struggling throughout the game. It is what it is. Oh, just pay the man. That's it. So,
what a moment, though. But we've not touched on it, but what a moment when that ball cleared the fence. Such relief. I think the Judge probably had a look and was like, "Oh no, Chapman's coming in the 10th. We're gonna lose."
Against a good pitcher too. Barlow's a good pitcher.
Yeah. Yep. And then he hit that monster bomb to win the game for the Yankees.
Yeah, it really was. But you have been watching the Pitch Strike Chronicles on Northeast Streaming Sports on Roku, live on Facebook, live on YouTube. It has been a very fun hour. Wear your pinstripes, your pride, and play hard.